Today's show, we're going to do one thing. We're going to cover a piece I wrote in the Better Human newsletter, which you can get over at betterhumans.substack.com or thebetterhuman.co. Every other day, get it. It'll help you become robust, anti-fragile, prepared for what's next. Also, think for yourself, critical thinker, better, fitter, smarter, sexier, in every freaking way. Building better decentralized humans that opt out of the broken status quo as much as possible. That is how we create a better world for my children, your children, and even yourself. It's going to spread one better human at a time that demands liberty, that demands more of themselves and others in their community. That's the only way it's going to happen. It's not going to be a top-down approach. The government is not going to do anything. The government is going to keep doing what it does, which is acquiring more power until it implodes. So I went off today. It was like my subconscious was just waiting to get it out. Wrote this long piece. Normally in the newsletter, I don't write a long piece, actually. I just get to short bits, but I had to release this, and now I got to share it with you. It all started from this little bit of information when I was working on the news section. 22% of fitness businesses closed in 2020. 1.5 million workers lost their job. But who got richer? Amazon, Walmart, and all the other mega corporations that were deemed essential. I mean, most of them, like obviously flight, airline, and cruises and things like that got hit. But they got bailed out. They got billions of dollars. They're fine. Now, I started writing this and I'm thinking to myself, like, it's very good I was not affected. And I've thought about this. It is very good for me that I didn't have a small brick and mortar where I would have had to shut down or been hurt in any way. We had e-commerce. We were set up to be okay. We had a spike in sales. I've also set up my life and I have certain assets in Bitcoin where our family was good. In fact, 2020, for the most part, aside from the insanity and clown world that it was pretty good to us. I'm glad that didn't happen though, because I'm afraid of what I would have done. I'm afraid of what it would have taken out of me. Very afraid. But let me explain to you what's really going on here and what's going to happen. This is exactly what's going to happen. Now, I will give you the disclaimer before we get to that. If this is the first time here, maybe you clicked on this on Instagram or somebody sent it to you. If I say something that upsets you, this is my advice. Sit with it, try to understand why that's the case, and then understand this is what's going on. It's very hard to do, so I commend you if you do it. Understand that your primal biology is designed to maintain your belief system because in the wild, when we lived as hunter-gatherers, we had to think alike. Groupthink is a natural byproduct of living in the wild as small bands of hunter-gatherers for hundreds of thousands of years. Because if we didn't think together, we were a threat, or an individual would have been a threat. It's a threat to reproduction. You would be shamed, shunned, exiled, or killed, all of which were major threats to your survival and your reproductive success. Nature figured out that if we got humans together in a small group, they could hunt better, eat better, survive better. And then it figured out they had to think alike because that was conducive to better survival, better hunting, better reproduction, etc. It's all based on nature, which is why it's so tribalistic today, which is why it's so hard to hear things that conflict with your worldviews. So if that happens, try to understand the source material. Don't attack me because you're just being a Neanderthal, basically. You're giving into your base primal instinct, because the reality is if you want to be good, better, or your best self, you have to constantly absorb information that challenges your belief system. So you should embrace hearing conflicting opinions. If you don't agree with something I'm about to say, you should embrace it and see, where can I learn from this? Where can I maybe absorb what is useful and discard what is not, and then add what is uniquely my own, as Bruce Lee said. That makes you a better human. And if you've no desire to be a better human, then you should leave right now, because this show is about becoming a better human. Being one, becoming one, aspiring to be one, etc. That scared the shit out of me. Oh my gosh. That was a game that I was updating on my iPad, and that gave me goosebumps. I feel like something just crept up on me. This is what's going to happen. After I've got that disclaimer out of the way, you know where I stand. I hope we're on the same page. I hope I can help you in some way. And yep, that is what it is. So many lawsuits will be one of these topics. There are a lot of lawsuits going on with the unconstitutional lockdowns, CDC, FDA, all the things that have been going on in the name of an emergency, right? Which we know was an emergency. We know it was manipulated. We know all the numbers, and the numbers are going to keep coming out. Lawsuits that take years sometimes to settle will continually prove and show and basically exonerate all the people that were saying this is ridiculous, or this isn't constitutional, or this is illegal. That will come out. And of course, a lot of people in power today won't care because they'll already be on to the next election, or they already have gotten out of office and they already made their millions, and their crony buddies and their lobbyists have paid them. It just boils my blood, but this is the system. This is the game. The lawsuits will come out. The mainstream media, which is basically the propaganda arm of the federal government at this point, will downplay or straight up not cover and ignore most of it, right? The same goes for all the research that will come out. We will continually have more research on masks and gene therapy and, quote unquote vaccines or whatever. And it will, as it has been with all vaccine and all vaccine propaganda, will be continually suppressed and or promoted depending on whether the research supports the narrative. That is not science, okay? That is propaganda, manipulation, and the profit motive. The medical cartel, Big Pharma, is at this point basically the fourth arm of government, or you'd say the fifth. You have mainstream media and you have Big Pharma. They're now two forms of government because the way all of it actually works, they're all in bed together. They all scratch each other's back and do things to benefit each other. And they're all there to prop up the status quo that is designed to keep Americans sick, overweight, depressed, and reliant on their fake, cheap foods that now they're claiming is greener because it happens to be green, even though it's actually worse for the environment. It's kind of funny how that works. And you need their drugs and their vaccines and their this, and then you consume their entertainment, which is filled with propaganda, and then so on and so forth it goes. So that you'll vote a certain way so that the same morons in power will continually get and maintain power. And government will keep growing. The politicians running the show will keep running us into the ground with their manipulation of money, interest rates, and all these other things. And it will last until the music stops. And when the music stops, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 20, maybe it's just slow decline. Maybe America just slowly declines and China and Russia or whoever become the next superpower. It's hard to say what's going to make everything change or what's going to be that great reset, right? Where that reset is going to be controlled by the World Economic Forum and all those morons with their billions of dollars and thinking they're basically having to save the world and with their savior complexes and whatever. Or it's going to be a slow, gradual shifting into a more decentralized way of life. I'm hoping it's the latter. I'm hoping things like Bitcoin and different ways of living. And obviously now that we have the internet and we can share information freely and they can't censor, they can try, but it kind of backfires. I think we can maybe have a bloodless revolution, but there's still going to be pockets of potential conflict, of power outages, of supply shortages, food issues. People are going to starve. People are going to be killed. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen throughout this process. Maybe it happens all at once. Maybe it's slow. Maybe it's here and there, and then it's good for a bit, and then it goes back. It's hard to say. Nobody knows. But it will change because history does change. Nature does change. The only thing that's constant in the universe is change. The universe is always in flux. Nothing is the same. As more of this information comes out, you won't hear anybody exonerating the so-called conspiracy theorists. In fact, in 2020, they said, if you were talking about how they're going to try to have a vaccine passport, they called you a conspiracy theorist. They'll never do that. You're a conspiracy theorist. Stop talking whatever. And then now we have vaccine passports. It's incredible. This will go on. And what you will see from the masses is they will selectively ignore. And because memory is actually something that changes based on current circumstance to be convenient to whatever the person wants to believe, people will even convince themselves that they always thought this way or they always thought that way. Or they will just straight up ignore it and tune into their favorite mindless entertainment. The reality is the mainstream media is owned and controlled by the elite, and they are in bed with government. And they all, like I said, work together to keep you addicted to their control and their products and services that they deem you need for your own good and safety. Now, I will stop at this point. I sincerely hope I am poking that dissonance button in your subconscious because that means I'm giving you something to think about. And back to that disclaimer, if you feel a little hot and bothered, I encourage you to resist lashing out at me. You can if you want to. It doesn't actually bother me. I'm not saying this for me at all. I'm saying this for you. I hope you resist that urge to do that because that's the only way you're going to be able to see through your own bias. To see through your own bias is probably the most important thing for you and any human to be able to do. If you can't, you will forever have unforeseen, unsuspected, and upcoming fragilities in your life. They might manifest in cancer or heart disease because you were doing things that weren't great for your health and you were listening to the mainstream narrative around it. Or maybe financially, you thought buying stocks or investing in your 401k was the best thing, and then that entire system blows up. Or you thought Social Security was always going to be there, and that entire system blows up, and so you weren't paying attention enough to buy Bitcoin. And then the world changes, and all you want is Bitcoin, but now you're paying thousands of times more than you would have paid if you just listened to me in 2020 or 2021, or you were even open to the idea that you would need to listen to somebody like me or do your own research. The only way to master biology, and the only way to actually become sovereign and free and be prepared against the craziness that we're going to be going into in the next 10 to 20 years is to understand, okay? Use that understanding to open your mind as best as you can and ruthlessly try to stay committed to the understanding and the openness as best as you can, because you will continually slip back into bias and dogma and these things because it is painful. Your ego doesn't like hearing things that conflicts with or that it can't understand or explain. The only way to master life is to understand the game you're playing, the parameters of that life, and you, the human animal, have a brain and health and a biology, and there are certain parameters that define how it works and what makes it better or worse. And for everything in your life, from money to health to finance to happiness to fulfillment to meaning, every single thing in your life that you then outsource to somebody else on TV that you don't know because you think that they're smart or they know the thing that you don't know or whatever, everything that you outsource, you are taking a major risk. Everything that you insource and that you figure out for yourself and that you test and experiment and then listen to the feedback makes you safer, more resilient, and more likely to prosper. That's what Better Human is about. Stepping off the board, opting out, creating prosperity awareness and self-reliance for yourself, your family, and your community. And if I can help build more better humans through these different mechanisms and through just waking people up a little bit, that's how we move into a better paradigm for the future of humanity. Because we are at peak centralization in 2020 and 2021. We see that. That's why every day they look more like clowns, because they're actually losing power while simultaneously gripping down and trying to get more of it. But they're just shooting themselves in the foot. They will only accelerate their own demise. That's why I'm happy to see it. But that being said, I don't want a lot of the pain and a lot of people suffer in the interim. I want to start building new ways of thinking, new ways of life, new ways of commercing. I don't even know if that's the word, commercing, engaging in commerce. I want to do that now so that there is a fallback for when that system crumbles that people can hop onto. Because I don't really want anybody to suffer. And yes, there are sociopaths and psychopaths that go into politics. And when they're there, even if they weren't that, they become that, right? Because power corrupts. We know this. But I want those people to be given a chance to wake up from it, to stop being incentivized to play the broken, destructive game, and then to maybe do some good in the world, right? I don't believe anybody is beyond redeemable. I just don't think that. I think everybody should be given a chance to learn from their mistakes and do some good before it's too late, before their life ends. So there is a resource here. If you want to really go deep into this, the URL is worldwideshadow.com. And to get into it, the password is GO. Before I let you go, I'm going to give you a few quick things to chew on. I could go on and on here, but if you want to read the whole piece, you have to go to betterhumans.substack.com to get it. All right, democracy is immoral and always leads to collapse. All government is coercion through violence. The free market is the only thing that brings prosperity to humanity. The government takes credit, but it's just a parasite. Vaccines are dangerous, period, full stop. I won't go into that. You'll have to read it here and read a book or two. Blow your mind. Every law ever created was written by somebody else. And the idea that it should apply to you or that it's moral or right or just is just a illusion. It's a belief system. And you can pierce that bubble with just a little bit of critical thinking. The United States has been at war 93% of the time since the founding or the signing of the Declaration. The United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on cities in Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 100,000 men, women, and children, mostly civilians, died in an instant. We can't even comprehend how much 100,000 is. Like, it's just inconceivable for our brain. Oh, it just makes me sick. And this war crime goes ignored and unpunished because this U.S. won and is the reigning superpower. It's just disgusting. Just, oh gosh. In fact, I can't even record anymore. I'm done today. This is it. I'm done for the rest of the day. I'm not working. I'm not thinking about any of this. Yeah. Get the whole newsletter. There's a ton more here. And then subscribe, like, share. I'm not going to have any sponsors today because, you know, whatever. This is a completely pro bono for humanity show. But get the newsletter, thebetterhuman.co. And if you're on YouTube, you know, drop some comments, like, share, do some things. Like, let's stoke that algorithm, right? Let's stoke that algorithm. It'll at least help get the message out a little bit. That's it. That's all I have energy for. I'll see you in the next one.